Hello everyone, welcome you all in this video tutorial. So in this video lecture, we are going to discuss about glucose metabolism. So now let's start with glucose and know some basic facts about glucose. So glucose acts as a main energy molecule, and in human body or in other organisms, cell need glucose to produce ATP, which is also called as adenosine triphosphate, and it acts as an energy currency for our cells with the help of process which is called glucose metabolism. So glucose is one of the most abundant monosaccharide, and we know that what are monosaccharides. They are the simplest sugars which cannot hydrolyzed further. So glucose is a 6-carbon sugar having aldehyde group, thus it is also called as aldose sugar. And its molecular formula is C6H12O6. Naturally, glucose is produced by photosynthetic organisms like plants and algae by the process of photosynthesis, and all the heterotrophic organisms consume it from the plants and the plant products. Now let's understand that how this glucose provides us energy. We have studied that ATP is the energy currency for our body. So what is the process for converting glucose into ATP? So basically, glucose metabolism is the process of converting glucose molecules or food into the fuel, or also called as ATP or adenosine triphosphate. That's why it is considered as a main energy molecule for our body. So now let's understand the methods of glucose metabolism, or how glucose is metabolized in our body with the help of these pathways. So there are 4 main processes or pathways for metabolism of glucose in our body, which are gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, glycolysis and glycogenesis. Here the first process is glyconeogenesis, which is the synthesis of glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors, and it occurs in the liver and in kidney cortex sometimes. Now when our body have excess glucose, that it is conserved in the form of glycogen in liver and muscle cells, and later it converts into glucose by degradation, and this process is called as glucogenolysis. The another process is glycogenesis. So it is the process of converting the extra sugar or glucose molecules into glycogen, because only glycogen is the storage form of glucose or of carbohydrates in our body, and this glycogen is stored in the liver cells or in muscle cells of our body. Now the glucose is distributed to all cells with blood cells and absorbed by the process of active transport, and the complete metabolism of glucose occurs in the mitochondria and cytosol of our cell. Now let's understand this pathway in detail. So at first the absorption of glucose occurs by cells, and this absorption is affected by hormone insulin, which is secreted by pancreatic cells. Now the process of cellular respiration completes in mitochondria, where glucose metabolism completes. So this process completes in 4 steps, which are glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, citric acid cycle and oxidative phosphorylation. And all these processes are commonly known as cellular respiration. So let's understand the cellular respiration in detail. The process of cellular respiration completes in mitochondria, and the first process of the cellular respiration, which is also called as glycolysis, is completed in the cytosol of the cell. And it consists of 4 steps, which are glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, citric acid cycle, also known as Krebs cycle, and fourth one is oxidative phosphorylation or electron transport chain. Now the first step of cellular respiration is glycolysis, which is also known as Embden-Meyerhof pathway, on the name of their discoverers. So this is the only process of cellular respiration which occurs in the cytosol of the cell, and all 3 processes or reactions completes in the mitochondria. This process completes in 2 steps. The first one is preparatory phase, which consume energy, and thus it is also called as energy investment phase, because in this phase we invest energy or invest ATP. And the other or the second phase of glycolysis is payoff phase, where the energy generation takes place, and thus it is also known as energy generative phase. So in the process of glycolysis, the molecule of glucose converted into two molecules of pyruvate or pyruvic acid. Now this is the diagram where we can see the first phase or the preparatory phase of the glycolysis, where the glucose molecules converts into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone phosphate. It is 4-step reaction where glucose is first converted into glucose 6-phosphate with the help of enzyme hexokinase, and further it converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now this is the second phase of glycolysis, which is also called as payoff phase or energy generative phase. Here we can see the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, which is prepared by the pre-parity phase, is taking part in this reaction, and the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is converted into two molecules of pyruvate, which are 3 carbon molecules. Here, with the help of various enzymes, it undergoes phosphorylation and produce ATP, and at the end of the reaction, two molecules of pyruvic acid are produced. So these are the enzymes which are used in this reaction. Now these pyruvate or pyruvic acid molecules are oxidized into acetyl coenzyme so that it can take part in citric acid cycle. Or this process completes in the presence of coenzyme A, and this conversion is catalyzed by multi-enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So here in this diagram we can see the graphical presentation or the reaction of pyruvate oxidation, where the molecule of pyruvate converted into acetyl coenzyme in the presence of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. Now this acetyl coenzyme take part in the citric acid cycle, which is also called as tricarboxylic acid cycle or Krebs cycle. Now this cycle occurs in the matrix of mitochondria, and it is also a multi-step reaction or a cyclic reaction where each acetyl coenzyme converts into two molecules of CO2 or carbon dioxide. Now this is the graphical presentation of citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle, which completes in 8 steps. Here the acetyl coenzyme A is the substrate which undergoes oxidative decarboxylation and phosphorylation processes, and in the third and fourth steps two molecules of carbon dioxide are produced. The cycle completes in 4 regulatory processes which are irreversible steps, and they also ensure the regulation of citric acid cycle. The last step of cellular respiration is oxidative phosphorylation, and this process completes in inner mitochondrial membrane. The process involves flow of electrons which generate proton motive force, and it is called as electron transport chain. In the last 2 steps of electron transport chain, the oxidative phosphorylation completes, and with the help of enzyme ATP synthase, ATP synthesis takes place. Here the metabolism of glucose completes with the formation of ATP or adenine triphosphate molecules, which act as an energy molecule or energy currency for our body, and all our body metabolism or our body functions needs ATP for the functioning. So now let's understand the role of insulin and glucagon in the carbohydrate metabolism or glucose metabolism in our body. So both insulin and glucagon are hormones which are produced by our body, and both help to keep the glucose concentrations normal in our body. When we take the example of insulin, it is also a hormone or a polypeptide hormone which is produced by beta cells of the islets of Langerhans by the pancreas of our body. And insulin acts to reduce the glucose concentration in the body. And when we saw that the deficiency of insulin or the lack of insulin in our body causes disease called as diabetes 1 or diabetes 2. Now the another type or the another hormone is glucagon and epinephrine, which have opposite effect to insulin. These two hormones help to increase the glucose concentration in our body. So in this video lecture, we have discussed about glucose metabolism, the whole process of whole reaction of glucose metabolism occur in our body, glycolysis, citric acid cycle, oxidative phosphorylation, and also about the role of glucogen and insulin in the glucose metabolism. I hope you all have now discussed or learned about the glucose metabolism properly. Thank you.